Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the MPO Policy Committee meeting to order and remind everyone that, of course, this meeting is being live streamed. Members, in order for online attendees to hear, please make sure you unmute your microphone when speaking, and please identify yourself when making or sending a motion so the secretary can capture who is making the motion. For those attending in person, please complete the sign-in sheet located in the hallway before you leave. If you wish to make a public comment, please fill out the public comment card and return it to a staff member. And for those participating via Zoom, please keep your microphone muted unless you're called upon to speak. And when appropriate on the agenda, we'll request comments from those online, and you can indicate your desire to speak via the chat box. Not chat bot, chat box. Staff is monitoring Zoom, and we will recognize you when it's your time to speak. And with that, Erin, could you please call the roll?
Thank you. And I'll ask if you're not the primary member, if you identify yourself when I call your agency. IDOT Secretary Biaggi.
Here.
CDOT.
Present, Mary Nickel.
Thank you. CMAP.
Frank Field, here.
Thank you. CMAP President Brawley. Class 1 railroads.
Tom Evenson online for the class ones.
Thank you, Tom. Cook County.
Tara Orban sitting in for Sis Killen.
Thank you. Council of Mayors.
Jeff Shelkey, Chairman of Council of Mayors.
Thank you. CTA.
Molly Poppy for Nora Learson.
Thank you. DuPage County.
Steve Travia representing Deb Conroy.
Thank you. FHWA.
John Paul Diplo for John Tolliver.
FTA. Illinois State Toll Highway Authority.
Cassandra Rouse, present.
Thank you. Kane County.
Tom Rickard here representing Chair Parag.
Kendall County. Lake County.
Shane Schneider on behalf of Chair Hart.
Thank you. McHenry County.
Scott Hennings for Chair Bueller.
Thanks. Metra.
Metra.
Thank you, Chair Derwinski. Pace.
Eric Luan representing Chairman Kwasniewski.
RTA.
Kyle Whitehead for Leanne Redden.
And Will County. We do have a quorum this morning.
All right, thank you. Requests were received from Scott Gengler, Kendall County Rep, and Tom Evanson, Class 1 Railroad Rep, to participate remotely in this meeting in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. It does require a majority voice vote of this body. Can I get a motion to approve virtual participation?
So moved.
Second.
Move Shelkey, second. Second over here.
Metra.
Second by Metra. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the vote passes. Please let the secretary mark them present and able to participate on matters of the committee. Item 2.0, agenda changes and announcements. There are no changes to the agenda. So on to 3.0, approval of the minutes. And we'd like to take items 3.01 and 3.02 together. So we have the minutes from March 13th, 2025, and the minutes from May 30th, which was our special meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the March 13th meeting minutes and the May 30th special meeting minutes?
Motion, Lake.
Moved by Shelkey, seconded by
Lake County.
Lake County. Thank you. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. On to 4.0 CMAP announcements, and I'll turn it over to Erin Alleman, our Executive Director.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's really great to see you all again at our June meeting. Our next meeting won't be until the fall here. I am very pleased to report to all of you, I shared this with our board yesterday, but CMAP was able to get a $2 million appropriation for our work that falls outside of the transportation realm and is eligible for transportation funding support. So this is something that we've been pursuing at the state level for the past 3 years, but even prior. When CMAP was created, our authorities are broader than just transportation. Really, our state authorizing legislation asks us to look at water and housing and economic development issues. And so we are grateful to those of you who supported, to all of the bill sponsors that we had here. We will be receiving this funding through the Department of Human Services, whose mission is to respond to the needs of all people in Illinois so they can lead healthy, safe, and enriched lives. And we believe that aligns well with the CMAP's overall mission here. So again, we will be building a program around this. Again, it is a 1-year appropriation, but we're hopeful that we can prove to the General Assembly that the value that they get from supporting CMAP's work really just goes back to local communities across the region to help them solve their critical issues. And so we will have we'll just be excited about that and share more with you in the fall as we ramp that up. We'll have a longer legislative update later on your agenda here. I think you all are aware that the Safe Travel for All program marked a significant milestone here by the approval of the county safety action plans. I want to thank each and every one of you, your teams, for their support and getting those over the finish line in an accelerated pace. But also, we wanted to make sure that you all and communities across the region were eligible for applying for hard infrastructure dollars. So we are excited for that. Applications for the federal funding closes June 26th. And so if you have questions or know of communities that are applying for that, we just want to make sure that we're aware of what's happening. And so we can understand, what our opportunity and eligibility is for receiving federal infrastructure dollars to address critical safety needs. At its meeting yesterday, the CMAP board received an overview of 30 new technical assistance programs selected for 2025, which are displayed on the screen here. We had a variety, almost over 80 applications come in for technical assistance support in a variety of categories. We are excited again to be able to support communities with Americans with Disabilities planning, bicycle and pedestrian plans, capital improvement planning, pavement management planning, and transportation safety overall. Again, it was a very competitive pool, which again continues to really reflect the needs from our local communities and their desire to have technical support in pursuing their local goals and objectives here. I do know that, again, RTA is selecting projects too that we received jointly for their community planning program. Thanks to RTA for always being an annual longstanding partner in this process. Makes it easy for communities just to submit one application to both agencies here. We also recently shared new local housing profiles to help policymakers, planners, researchers, and residents understand how key information about their community, especially related to housing. Each community across our region and Chicago community areas now have access to housing market data. Across the region, this work was created in partnership with DePaul Institute for Housing Studies as well. On the housing front, Lake County and CMAP are also teaming up to expand affordable housing and accessible housing with support from the Schreiber Family Philanthropy, who awarded CMAP a $300,000 grant to continue that work. So we're excited to be doing that work. And again, we hope to learn from our work in partnership with Lake County and then also sort of take that as a way for us to expand that work to our counties across the region here. So over the next 12 months in that project, a task force will evaluate tools and resources to address housing challenges, culminating in a step-by-step housing-ready toolkit. Again, the goal of this initiative is really to increase the supply of affordable housing through actionable municipal-focused strategies. And then finally, just a preview of our agenda here, which reflects several important milestones in our ongoing work to maintain a federally compliant, data-driven, and forward-looking transportation planning process for Northeastern Illinois. The committee will be asked to approve our federally required self-certification, confirming that the region's planning process meets all applicable laws and regulations. We're going to seek your support for the latest conformity analysis and TIP amendments, ensuring that those align with ON 2050. In addition, you'll see consideration for approval for the CMAQ STP Shared Fund and TAP-L local program, again, which represents our investment in clean, more efficient, and multimodal transportation options across the region. And then staff will also preview some work that we've got on existing conditions related to our regional vision work as well. And then finally, we'll end with a legislative update highlighting recent state and federal activities that could shape the region's infrastructure planning priorities. So we covered much of the same stuff at our board meetings yesterday, but wanted to make sure that you all are well informed in this. With that, I am happy to take any questions you might have. All right. Hearing none, I'll turn the mic back over to our chair.
All right. Well, thank you for the report. So we have a full agenda ahead of us today. Item 4.02, CMAP board update, and the update, since Leanne is not here. I'm sorry, not CMAP. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Frank, if you wouldn't mind turning your mic on. Thank you.
Leanne is the MPO representative to the CMAP board. She attends those board meetings. She's not here today. So 5 minutes ago, I received the script for the update. So bear with me. At our April 9th board meeting, we received the update on the agency's congestion management plan and its relationship to the regional transportation plan, and learned about the emerging priorities that are going to shape the regional transportation plan. At the May 14th meeting, we received an update on the I-290 Blue Line Corridor, which our chair has been involved in the past, and I assume will continue to be involved with. And we thank you for that. We heard a presentation on the regional vision planning process. We received a preview of early insights from the existing conditions assessment. At our meeting yesterday, we provided concurrence on a variety of plans, which you will hear about later in this agenda, so I won't go into that. We previewed key findings from the existing conditions report for the 2026 regional transportation plan, and we were updated on the technical assistance projects, which were just presented to you a minute ago. So that's my report.
Thank you for the report. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you so much. Moving on to 4.03, Council of Mayors Executive Committee Report. Mayor Shelkey.
Thank you. The Council of Mayors includes representatives from each of the 11 sub-regional councils of mayors we met last week. We welcome 3 new mayors to the committee from the Northwest and North Shore councils of mayors. Mayor Jessel Patel from Lincolnwood, President Mike Moran from Barrington, and President Cecil Katz from Kenilworth. At our meeting agenda included a lively discussion of some of the CMAP data and map books that provide real value to our municipalities in the region. The social economic forecast, the Northeastern Illinois Development Database, and CMAP's award-winning job quality and access tool. The mayors also asked questions about the tools, took notes, and I'm sure have already been in touch with their municipal staffs to make sure this data and maps can be put to use. The committee also approved new bylaws to replace bylaws that date back to 2001, bylaws that are older than some of the CMAP employees. The new bylaws allow for the committee to meet in local workshops, which we hope will enable more mayors to participate because they won't have to travel so far to attend the meetings. Our next meeting will be in September, and that's our report.
Thank you, Mayor, for the report. Are there any questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 5.0, which are other items for approval. Item 5.01, MPO self-certification for the Metropolitan Transportation Planning Process, and Martin Menninger, Program Lead in Regional Policy and Implementation. You're up.
Good morning.
Morning.
Federal statute requires 2 certifications of the planning process every 4 years, self-certification and federal certification. Self-certification is an internal audit that the regional planning process aligns with federal planning requirements, and federal certification will come in early 2026, where our federal partners will audit our work. Statutes for self-certification have 10 parts detailed in your packet. A few highlights. Part 1 looks at the metropolitan planning requirements. These are many of the core MPO requirements, such as regional transportation plan, congestion management plan, and the TIP. Part 2 refers to the Clean Air Act. We'll hear about our work there on conformity later. And then parts 3 through 10 really cover a variety of different civil rights acts and rules. These such as American with Disabilities, Title VI, and the Older American Acts. These prohibit discrimination on race, color, national origin, ability, sex, and show up in a variety of ways throughout all of our work in procurement, HR, the ADA, and Title VI work we do, and many other places. Staff have been meeting the past few months to review these rules and our compliance with them. We found that the planning process is in compliance, but not all documents were easily located on our website. We've been working with our communications team to find homes for all the documents, and all are now available. TC recommended approval on May 30th to this group, to this committee, and with that, I'll take any questions.
Do we have any questions? All right. Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the MPO self-certification for the Metropolitan Transportation Planning process?
So moved by Shelkey.
Moved by Shelkey, second.
RTA.
Second by RTA. Is there any discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. On to item 5.02, TIP conformity analysis and TIP amendment. Russell Petroviak, program lead in research analysis and programming.
Thank you. And you pronounced my last name perfectly. So well done.
I have a cheat sheet.
Yeah, that is often a source of interesting opportunities. Included in your packet today is the ON2 2050, 2025 to 2029 TIP conformity amendment 25-08. The CMAP region is a non-attainment area for ozone. Thus, we are required under the Clean Air Act to demonstrate that projects in the TIP conform to the motor vehicle emissions budget for our region through a regional emissions analysis. Specifically, projects in the TIP subject to air quality analysis requirements demonstrate, when modeled, that the region does not exceed our motor vehicle emissions budget, which is shown at the end of the memo that is in your packet. The conformity amendment was released for a 30-day public comment period, during which no comments were received. The conformity amendment, CMAP's emissions modeling process, and the regulatory requirements that we are subject to were discussed at the Tier 2 interagency consultation meeting on May 16th. That nobody had anything to say about how we do stuff. Everybody's supportive of how we go about it. The conformity memo was also presented to the CMAP Transportation Committee on May 30th, at which time they voted to recommend to the MPO approval of the TIP conformity amendment. By approving this amendment, the MPO is making a conformity determination for the entire TIP that the TIP is found to be in conformity. So at this time, CMAP staff requests approval of the ON2 2050, 2025 to 2029 TIP conformity analysis and TIP memo as presented. Excuse me, that is for TIP amendment 25-08. And after the motion is made, if there are any questions at that time, I can answer them.
All right. Thank you for the report. Can I get a motion to approve the ON2 2050, 2025 through 2029 TIP conformity analysis and TIP amendment?
So moved.
Moved by Shelkey, second by Tolway. Is there any discussion or questions? Okay. Well, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. The ayes have it. Motion carries. On to item 5.03, federal fiscal year 2026 through 2030 congestion mitigation and air quality improvement program. We mostly know as CMAQ, service transportation program shared fund STP, and locally programmed transportation alternatives programs TAP. And we have Kemma Dobbs, principal analyst.
All right. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for saving me from having to say those all out by giving the acronyms. For those that don't know me, good morning. My name is Kemma Dobbs. I'm the principal for our federal transportation funding programs. On your agenda today, staff is seeking your approval of TIP amendments 2509.1, .2, and .3, which contain the federal fiscal year 2026 through 2030 congestion mitigation and air quality, surface transportation program, shared fund, and local transportation alternatives program projects that are recommended by our project selection committees, as well as the Transportation Committee and CMAP Board. On the next slide, as you know, the federal transportation legislation directs federal funding to the states, While many federal fund sources are managed by IDOT, there are three major programs that federal legislation directs to CMAP as the MPO, and those are the STP, CMAQ, and TAP programs. The amount of each fund source that we receive is determined by a combination of federal law and state distribution formulas that involve all of the state's MPOs. Our process for programming the funds we receive is overseen by two project selection committees, one focused on STP and the other focused on CMAQ and TAP. The committees include voting and advisory members from the councils of mayors representing the municipalities, the city of Chicago, the counties, transit agencies, IDOT, and our federal partners, basically mirroring the group sitting here today. We do program for 5 years at a time, soliciting project applications through calls for projects every 2 years. The goal of each call is to program the final 2 years of the 5-year program and to fill in any gaps in the earlier years where funds may have become available because of project delays or changes to the funding marks. During the call for projects that was open from October to December of 2024, we received 88 applications. More than 20 applicants requested consideration under multiple fund sources, which is why these numbers add up to 118 and not 88. These applications requested over $1 billion in federal funds for projects with a total value of over $7.5 billion. After the applications were submitted, as shown on the next slide, CMAP staff spent January through March completing the evaluation and scoring of the applications. Then staff used the scoring results to develop recommendations for project funding. This is a pretty dynamic process that involves not just the scoring, but also considers project readiness and the years in which funding is available. The staff recommended programs were presented to the respective project selection committees in April, and a public comment period was held from April 4th through May 2nd. We did receive 4 public comments on the programs. 3 of those comments submitted were in support of a project that was recommended for TAP funding, and one of the comments requested consideration of 5 projects that had not been submitted during the open call. The project selection committees reviewed the comments at their May meetings, and based on the nature of those comments, no changes were made to the draft programs. The final programs approved by the project selection committees were processed as tip changes that were reviewed by the Transportation Committee on May 30th. The CMAP board also reviewed the programs yesterday and provided their concurrence with the programs. The details of the programs and the tip changes were included in your meeting materials today. As the summary here shows, the recommended programs include a total of 40 projects that were selected across the 3 fund sources from the 88 applications received. These projects are spread throughout the region and combined will provide over $23 million for direct emissions reduction, over $83 million for transit facility and access improvements, over $86 million for intersections, traffic flow, rail highway grade separations, and road and bridge improvements. So those are the highway improvements. And then over $103 million for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure improvements. So at this time, with that concurrence from the CMAP board and recommendation of approval from the Transportation Committee, staff is requesting your approval of TIP amendments 2509.1, 2509.2, and 2509.3, which incorporate these programs into the fiscally constrained TIP.
All right. Thank you so much. Can I get a motion to approve the FY 2025 to 2030 CMAQ, STP, and Transportation Alternatives Program as discussed?
Moved by Shelkey.
Second.
By Beal.
Shelkey and Beal. Thank you. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. The ayes have it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
If
Yes.
I could also just note that Vice Chair Gengler arrived to the meeting, so just noting that for the record.
Okay. Item 6.0, information item 6.01, appointment of a subcommittee for nominating the vice chair of the MPO Policy Committee. Each year, the chair of the MPO committee appoints a nominating committee to bring forward a name or names for the vice chair of the MPO for the following year. This year, I appointed the following members of the nominating committee. CMAP board member to represent the Regional Planning Agency, Frank Beal. Metra to represent the Public Transportation Agency, Lynette Chiavarella. Council of Mayors to represent municipal government, Mayor Jeff Shelkey. Chicago Department of Transportation to represent highways or roads and transportation, Mary Nickel. And McHenry County to represent the county, Scott Hennings. This does not actually require a vote. It's for information only. The nominating committee is scheduled to meet today after this policy committee meeting. So thank you everyone for participating on that. Next item, 6.02, regional vision update. And we have Elizabeth Scott, our principal analyst.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Happy to be here to talk to you about regional comprehensive planning, not transit, regional comprehensive planning. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Elizabeth Scott. I work in our regional policy and implementation team at CMAP, but we're here to talk today about a sort of whole of agency initiative to update the region's comprehensive plan, currently the Onto 2050 comprehensive plan. We were here talking to the MPO about a year ago about our strategy and how we were thinking about approaching this process. And we spent the last year thinking about how we were going to mobilize and implement. And I'm excited to say that we kind of have a plan for the first leg of the race. And we want to talk to you about the path from now to our November launch for the project. Thank you. So, you all are probably more aware of this than most, but I think it's helpful to start this conversation with a reminder that CMAP has two sets of responsibilities, one given to us by the state and the Regional Planning Act. This is one of the reasons we're so excited to have received these funds from the state this year that Erin spoke about in her opening, because the state asks of CMAP that we periodically create a regional comprehensive plan for the region that includes broad stakeholder engagement that can guide the physical development of the region and establishes the foundation for all planning in the region. So it asks us to look at land use, transportation, housing, environmental issues, all of the things that sort of in an intersectional way affect the built economy and the environment and quality of life in Northeastern Illinois. We also have responsibilities given to us by the federal government through the MPO set of rules and regulations, requiring us to, every 4 years, create the regional transportation plan. That plan must have at least a 20-year planning horizon, involve implementers, very intimately involving the MPO. It guides transportation investments. So this is the policy basis on which the investments that CAMA was just talking to you are made. And there are a lot of technical pieces that we have to carry out as part of that to comply with the federal process. So we hold both of these things. Next slide, please. And so CMAP this year is 20. And so we have 20 years of regional planning that we've done on behalf of the region, but we've also learned from. So we took the opportunity, to think about this milestone and think about the structure of what we've done to this point, what we liked about it, what we thought added value and worked for the region, and things where we thought we had an opportunity to evolve. So over the last 20 years, we have historically done one big plan every 8 years that fulfills both our state and federal planning requirements. You'll know these as the Go-To 2040 and Onto 2050 regional comprehensive plans. So Go-To 2040 was the first plan made by CMAP after the state took action to create the agency by merging the Land Planning Agency, NPSI, and the Transportation Planning Agency, CATS. And the year that plan came out, it won the National Planning Award. It was great for the region. We're very proud of it. We love the path it set us on and everything that it let us accomplish together as a region. But we sort of learned, okay, we made this big plan, then we made a smaller update of the plan. Then we made another huge plan, the Onto 2050 plan, which the region adopted in 2018. And then we did a small update of that plan in 2022. And what we kind of have observed over this process is that it is a very big mountain trough, kind of a process in the planning sphere, which sometimes benefits from a more continuous approach. And so thinking about how we can make the most implementable plan, the most practical plan, the most useful plan that reflects the needs of the region, we have decided to take a little bit of a different approach for the next cycle. It's also informed by the experience of the COVID-19 pandemic because, big change came and affected everything that we were doing in such a major way. You all intimately know this. And we thought from that experience that it could be helpful to have a planning process that could be more nimble in the face of these major disruptions, considering that it seems to be the direction our world is going in some ways. So the approach that we are taking with the next regional comprehensive plan, and this has sort of been like baby plan, no name yet, vision, regional vision, is that we want to create a more durable, not evergreen because these things change, but we want to create a durable regional vision that focuses on what we all care about to set kind of a North Star, and then create a planning cycle underneath it that allows topical plans to be made on their own timelines. So if it makes sense for the region to have, we have to have the RTP, the Regional Transportation Plan, every 4 years, but maybe our freight plan only needs to be every 7 years, or maybe our housing plan is more like a 10-year plan. But to think about these issues and the coalitions that need to come around them in a more organic way, as opposed to trying to fit everything to a process that allows us to meet the federal requirements and do all of this planning at once. We hope we can get a better result from doing that. And so an example of the type of things that will come under this vision would be the Regional Transportation Plan you're going to hear more about today, and the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan that we're currently working on. The idea is that these topical plans or action plans or strategies or programs or policies that will be initiated will align to the vision and help see the region's vision through, just to give you the idea of structure. Okay, the name of this thing, I promised I'd do jazz hands, so here we go. Okay, is the Century Plan. And the reason that we're doing this is that we're thinking about what is it going to take for the Chicago region to make the most of this century. This is going to be a process that we hope ends up yielding a playbook for all of us. We have a tremendous planning history in the region, as I'm sure you all know and probably share my pride in. So we're hoping to connect the planning today to that history as well, to the Burnham history, to the Century of Progress, to all of that, because we have tremendous assets, but also tremendous challenges, and our future is not assured. So this is what this process is going to be about lifting our eyes to the horizon and thinking about what are the big bets we need to make sure that, when the next generation gets the region, that it's as good as it can be. So it's grounded in the now, but it's about the medium and far distance future. What is this going to look like? We're going to try to answer questions like, where is the region today? Where could we end up, for good or for ill? We have an economy the size of Sweden's. We're, thinking about our context in the Midwest, in the US, in North America, across all of the different things that we have to be prepared with to compete. Where could we head, and what kind of investments do we need to make? Where could we end up if we don't do anything? What defines us at our best? Where does the region want to go, and what would it take to get there? I think we all know, just like from personal life, there's the path of least resistance, and then there's sort of the choice path that can put you on a higher trajectory, and this is what this effort is about focusing on. Okay. So practically speaking, we will use this process to identify the highest priorities in the region in context of what the best information tells us about what the future might hold for us. We're going to build consensus on the top opportunities and challenges, and we are going to articulate a plan for the region, by the region, and then help coordinate progress around the issues that the region identifies as primary. Why? Because the region can do more when we work together. And I think, there are over 200 strategies in the On to 2050 plan. We're looking to be more focused and more curated to kind of accelerate progress against what comes up from the century planning process as truly the top things where we're going to get the most bang for our buck, and we need to be focused. So, okay. So the MPO's role. So we're really at the beginning here, but we wanted to talk to you about this because you all and the organizations that you represent have a really important seat in all of this. We need you to help shape and develop the century plan along with the civic table in the region, our stakeholders, everyone who cares about what's happening and where we're going. And importantly, to understand, you will be asked to vote to adopt the century plan in the fall of 2027. So that's just an important thing to know about the process. So it'll mirror the process of our previous regional comprehensive planning processes in that way. So yeah, we're just getting started. We're going to be coming to you for regular input and direction. We're going to be looking to do a lot of different events and activities out in the region to understand the perspectives of different people in different areas. So we're looking to ask you to bring your community and networks along. And then quite importantly, and I'll get to this in a minute, we want you to save the date of November 4th because we're going to have a party. And it'll be a CMAP's anniversary as well as the launch of the century plan. Okay, next slide. And a little bit more about the particulars. What is, broadly speaking, what is this process going to look like? We are trying to be really thoughtful and intentional about how we resource this work. So we've got a lot going on, and I think that the core of the effort is taking the best data and information about what is going on in the region today. I'll say this is the how's the patient doctor phase. We're also doing some focused work on scenario planning to understand what future drivers of change are that we expect to affect the region and how we think that those things could hit us. Like, what will be the effect of rapid technological change that we're just seeing the beginning of in the region, environmentally, economically, in terms of land use? How is technology going to change the transportation space? All of these kinds of things are the questions that we're starting to ask. What will our population look like? What are we going to be, what are we likely to be facing in the future? And we're going to form those things into stories to bring to all of you to talk about what the opportunities and threats are looking like and what rises to the surface for people as the things that are areas that need collective action. And so so we're kind of in the fact-finding phase of the project. We're pre-kickoff now. Next year, there's going to be a phase that's really about civic dialogue, about bringing this information to the region and finding out what resonates and what doesn't, and starting to form these like trends, challenges, and opportunities into themes that we can create the basis of the plan around. And then we will articulate a plan that says, if these are the, let's say, 5 things that we really care about as a region that really have the potential to change our path, how do we organize ourselves to do something about them, whether to embrace an opportunity or avert a crisis? We are going to articulate the plan. I have high ambitions about the length of it because we want something useful and dynamic to people as opposed to a doorstop. We're looking for a lot of different ways to reach people, media opportunities, and so on. So we're trying to do something quite different from what we've done before that's grounded in civic dialogue, but as ever is the case with CMAP, deeply informed by the best data and information available. So we will need you to be part of it, and we're just really excited to get started. And I wanted to come and make sure that you all had a sense of where we were going now that we were ready to get underway. So last slide is a fun one. Please save the date on your personal calendars and your organizational calendars of November 4th, because it's a busy time in November with events. It'll be CMAP's 20th anniversary and the kickoff of the Century Plan at an event here at the old post office, planned to be in the evening. So like a 5 to 9-ish time frame event, and it's intended to be really fun and celebrate all the success that we've had together over the last 20 years. and look forward to the future. So I'm really excited about it. We've also never done anything like this, and I think it's going to be great. So thank you all. And if anybody has any questions or comments, I'm happy to take those.
Any questions or comments? All right, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Appreciate that. All right, next item, 6.03, Regional Transportation Plan Update from Ryan Tomto.
Good morning. My name is Ryan Tomto, Principal Policy Analyst here at CMAP. I use he, him pronouns. The main focus of this agenda item today is really on the recently released Existing Conditions Report. But before I hand it over to Julie Rushke to give that presentation, I just wanted to provide an overall update of where we're at with the development of the Regional Transportation Plan. So really excited. This slide shows the overarching calendar for what the rest of the work looks like. The existing conditions is a milestone deliverable. We're very excited to have it published. It's rich, full of a lot of rich information, which again, Julie will touch on a bit. But this will really merge with that emerging priorities work that we did earlier in the year to identify goal areas and objectives, to really merge together to have conversations around strategies, around policy recommendations, around things like what are the projects that will help advance those goals and objectives, and how will we pay for it. So work continues on the financial plan. We have a draft baseline revenues forecast, and we're moving into the reasonably expected revenues work. We met with the financial plan resource group earlier this week and had an initial meeting on that. We'll be coming back later at a future meeting to talk about that draft forecast. Additionally, we have been collecting projects, as I know most of you around the table know, for our regional capital projects process to identify those priority projects for the region. So those projects have been submitted and they're currently being evaluated, and we'll be coming back with the full listing as well as the evaluation results for that at an upcoming meeting as well. Other than that, just want to touch on public engagement. We continue to have an ongoing process in that space. We've been meeting with stakeholders and the public in general. We've had our questionnaire has been out. We have I think we're at about 1,000 responses now. So really excited about reaching that milestone, eager to keep getting more. So please continue to spread the word as opportunities arise. And then also just want to note, we have over the summer really kind of ramping up that in-person engagement activities across the region, getting out, meeting folks face to face, talking with them about what are their priorities, what are the challenges they experience when they're trying to get around the region, and things like that. I know most of you are at Transportation Committee, so the subboard again, but really wanted to flag one of my favorites was this recent McHenry County Touch a Truck event where we had a booth set up and we were talking to parents and learning about how they get around again, their challenges, what their daily lives are like when it comes to mobility. But then also we had a great opportunity to talk to kids, and so it was really exciting to hear what their thoughts are. And again, the main highlight from that was general consensus among all of them were teleportation is really where we need to focus our efforts. Yeah, it's exciting. It's really kind of the exciting part where you get out and you actually get to talk to folks and be energized by hearing more about their experiences. So anyway, that's my update. With that, I'll hand it over to Julie, who can provide more details on the existing conditions.
Good morning. As Ryan said, my name is Julie Rushke. Let me raise this a little bit. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a senior policy analyst here at CMAP. Last week, the RTP published an existing conditions report that examines trends affecting transportation in the region. And so today I'd like to preview some details about this report as well as some high-level findings. I know we've mentioned existing conditions maybe 20 times this meeting already. So just to explain the relationship a little bit, a lot of this work will eventually go to the Century Plan, where we'll take a look at some of this work much more comprehensively, at a wider range of topics, but with the RTP already underway, we are taking a sort of initial take at this work in a transportation-specific lens. So you may remember that the RTP published the Emerging Priorities Report this past February, which outlined preliminary goals and objectives for our transportation system based on early research and stakeholder feedback. The Existing Conditions Report helps continue the conversation about these goal areas by identifying trends, challenges, and opportunities that can help inform how the region might strategize to implement our vision for transportation. As such, you'll see that the report is structured by the 5 goal areas on the screen, providing key details about each. Examining existing conditions is an inherent part of the long-range transportation planning process. Along with other resources like the socioeconomic forecast, policy briefs, and additional analysis, this work helps answer the question of what are the challenges and opportunities to achieve the region's vision for transportation? Information like this serves as an origin point for upcoming discussions about RTP strategies and policy development, which will be happening in full force by this fall. And a little bit about the report before we get into some findings. The report provides high-level data-informed takeaways about major topics that are affecting our transportation system. The exercise here was not to look at every possible data point out there, but rather to provide a more clear, curated narrative about impactful dynamics and circumstances that we're seeing today. Okay. And since the Existing Conditions Report features about 70 data visualizations like maps, charts, and tables, I won't be able to cover everything in the report today. Instead, I'll preview a handful of key takeaways that may be particularly informative for upcoming discussions about RTP strategies. So when we look at the age composition of the region's residents, we see that we have an aging population. This means that seniors over 65 represent a growing proportion of the total population, while children and working age adults are both decreasing. These changes align with CMAP's ongoing work on a regional socioeconomic forecast, signaling that these trends are likely to continue into the future. Changes in the age composition of the region can have big implications for transportation planning. For example, there may be shifts in when, where, and how residents need to move throughout the region, and governments may need to consider more mobility options to support residents' ability to age in place. Since 2010, there's been relatively stagnant population growth. While the number of residents in the region has remained largely steady, we are seeing a growth in households. At the same time, households have become smaller, with a decreasing share of households having children. Growth in the number of households has been driven primarily by people living alone, married couples without children, non-family arrangements like roommates or non-married couples, and family members living together. While these changes mirror national trends and are not unique to Northeastern Illinois, residents living in more, smaller households could have an impact on the connections the transportation system needs to make. The most notable commute change that we see post-COVID is a growth in working remotely. On average, the number of residents working from home has tripled compared to pre-pandemic years. It appears, however, that this option is not uniformly available to all residents. For example, we see higher earning households as well as white and Asian residents working remotely higher than the regional average. While these are notable changes, we know that about 60% of jobs in the region cannot be done remotely. And so connecting residents to economic opportunity remains a major priority. For example, the commute downtown remains common, with the Loop being the densest job center in the region. There are also several suburban job centers in municipalities like Oak Brook, Naperville, Schaumburg, Deerfield, and more. Next slide, please. A concerning trend that we see is that crash fatalities have been trending upward since 2014. While serious injuries have declined since 2020, fatalities remain somewhat elevated, indicating that crashes may be becoming more deadly. Of these fatal and serious crashes, bicyclists and pedestrians are disproportionately impacted. And the data shows that bicyclists and pedestrians under 18 and over 55 are overrepresented in these fatal and serious crashes. For residents who cannot or do not drive, forms of active transportation like walking and biking provide crucial connections to destinations and other modes like transit. travelers that are not inside vehicles are particularly vulnerable to fatal and serious crashes. And we see that some areas in the region face higher rates of these crashes. Looking forward, efforts like the countywide safety action plans will help provide a greater understanding of these local contexts and support the identification of stronger solutions. On the climate front, while the transportation sector is a large contributor to regional emissions, it's also affected by climate-related conditions. In particular, flooding is a challenge in northeastern Illinois, and floods can weaken transportation infrastructure and cause barriers to mobility where they do happen. And unfortunately, a substantial share of our transportation structures have high or very high flood risk. Extreme heat can also significantly affect residents traveling throughout the region, with transit riders at unsheltered stops and stations being particularly at risk for exposure to high temperatures. Effectively mitigating these risks will be crucial to maintain existing infrastructure and to continue providing essential transportation options. Looking at our economy, we've continued to grow. Between 2010 and 2023, the regional economy grew 71% and added 430,000 new jobs. While we're largely in line with peer metropolitan areas, our growth has been slower than some areas like New York and Los Angeles, as well as the national average of 84%. If the region would like to see more economic growth, the data indicates that the transportation system could play a key role in making this happen. The overwhelming majority of jobs are near major transportation assets. 52% of jobs are within 1 mile of an interstate, and 35% are walking distance from transit stations. Additionally, transportation, distribution, and logistics is one of the highest performing clusters in our regional economy. And job growth in the freight sector at 11% has outpaced overall regional job growth at 7.8%. It's apparent that transportation is an economic strength in northeastern Illinois, driving better outcomes for both workers and businesses. And finally, my last slide before we wrap up here. A large portion of the region's transportation infrastructure was built in the 1950s and the 1960s. As these structures continue to age, there's risk of them falling into poor condition without coordinated investment and strategic asset management approaches. Looking ahead, there are potential challenges to meet this moment. For example, tolled interstates rely on toll revenue, a strong funding source that helps these assets have lower average ages. In the broader transportation network, however, varying funding sources and investment cycles have made it more challenging to maintain other crucial assets. Additionally, some key revenue sources have weakened over time. For example, revenue from the motor fuel tax has decreased as fuel efficiency has improved and electric vehicles have become more common. The transportation infrastructure that we have in the region is vast. Maintaining these essential connections will be critical to continue providing transportation options to residents and supporting our regional economy. And just to wrap up here, like I mentioned at the start of the presentation, those were just some high-level findings to give you a sense of the type of information that's featured in the existing conditions report in greater depth. The full report is featured on CMAP's website, as well as the RTP's engagement site, the link for which is on the screen there. The RTP's engagement site also includes a link where viewers can look at maps in the report in greater detail, and over time we hope to update that tool and continue to add to it. Looking forward, the RTP will continue to provide information to support strategic conversations later this year. Over the next several months, we'll return with policy briefs, additional analysis, and insights from partners and community members. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions or comments about the report.
Thank you so much.
No, I would like to make a couple comments if I could. Number one, I applaud what you've done here. You've really, I think, hit the top of some things that are happening. I would like to recommend there's a few factors in the region, though, that we got some areas that are growing phenomenally fast. The northwest corner of Kane County and the southwest corner of McHenry County around the intersection of Route 47 and 90. Unbelievable numbers up there. The city of Hampshire, the mayor just told me, he's got 2,800 single-family home lots that have yet to be built on that have been annexed and zoned into his city. And you've got all this new, the connection of Route 47 to 90 is relatively new. It was a beautiful thing that they did because it really has opened that area up. But the tollway seems to be a big driving force in our area. And in Kane County, we've got tollway comes through both the north and the south end of the county. And in the south end, we've got Randall and Kirk roads, and they're both now tollway connected. And the traffic numbers on them has significantly increased, and it all seems to be coming off the tollway. I'm the mayor in Batavia, and in Batavia right now, I've got 800 new living units being built, and we've got 6 senior living communities now in place, and we've got a 7th one now being built. And I'm told that that one is almost already full with people wanting to get in. And if you find out what are the driving forces of it, this transportation thing and the availability of getting onto the tollway, both at the north end of the county and the south end of the county, is a big factor, as is also the ability of Metro and Pace to provide service to them. So there's a huge demand for service out in our area, and we seem to be driving a lot of things going on, and I just hope you guys are taking the time to look very closely at what's happening there, because that seems to be a real driving area for new population to moving into the region. And if I ask new people, why are you moving into our town, probably the number one thing seems to be probably the access to transportation, both through Metro and the toll road. And then secondly, seems to be the quality of the public school systems that we have, and we've got a pretty good one in Batavia. And the test scores and all the stuff that comes out from those, that seems to be another driving force that's out there. And the other big one seems to be the availability of medical efforts. And in Kane County, we've got, some very good hospitals in Aurora and Elgin. We've got Central DuPage, which is over just east of us in DuPage County. And we've got Delnor Hospital in the central part of the county. And those are a big factor of why people want to move in, because of the availability of the medical facilities that are there. We are experiencing a dramatic increase in the number of people who seem to need medical attention. My fire department 15 years ago responded to about just shy of 2,000 calls a year. This past year, we went to 5,383. And it looks like what we're going through right now, we're going to meet that number again at the end of this year. So there's a huge demand for medical research and support and whatever. So that seems to be another driving force. Between the schools and the medical, those are two big factors. And then the access to the transportation and the well-run tollway that we have, I think, is, and the continuing improvements that are being made to it, are things that I think are helping to drive the region, specifically on the outer areas. I guess the other thing that I would just like to share, I'm one of the few mayors in the area that owns our own municipal electric utility. And the advent of the electric car into our town, it used to be at nighttime, we could kind of see a little leveraging off of the consumption. Now we got everybody going home at night and plugging the car into the driver in the garage, and our electrical consumption seems to be staying pretty good. But with all the electrical stuff that all of us are adding to our houses and whatever have you, I would suggest that we should also keep an eye on how much electrical demand we really have, and that there may be an opportunity, and I know the state has recently changed the law to allow for the reconstruction of some new nuclear reactors. And I'm led to believe that Morris, Braidwood, and Byron are the principal suppliers of electricity for much of the area. But I'm going to suggest that there could be some opportunities for some cities to put in a couple of new, smaller nuclear reactors, which I think now they are going to allow to be built. That could be another major factor in the region's growth, because we're going to need the electricity. You can tell me wind and solar, and I've got some of it, and there's a lot of problems with both of those that many people think they want to go there, but if they go there, they change their mind. So that's just me speaking, but that seems to be the experience that I'm seeing out there. So I've talked too much. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you. And if I just want to connect the dots between what the mayor's saying, your report, and what we heard about the Century Plan, right? So, we looked at some of those larger statistics about sort of growth and where we're going as a region, and those will be part of sort of breaking down a monolithic plan into smaller plans. But what we're hearing from the mayor are these individual growth drivers that may not be typically in the index that we use for what growth will look like. So yes, we do know transportation and other kinds of industrial relocations, but I think some of these nuances about hospitals, about, some of that granularity that you'll probably hear in those community conversations. It'd be very interesting if there was a way to codify a bit more an index that breaks down the region a little bit. So that way we can say, okay, here's a strategic investment in transportation here because the index is telling us that the weighted influence of transportation in this part of Northeast Illinois, that's good money in order to keep the growth going in the direction we want. But maybe over here, the index would indicate that it's actually investing in healthcare systems or investing in the energy infrastructure. So that way there's some way, like I love the idea that you're doing sort of these sub plans to the big kind of arc of where we're going. But I think that level of nuance will enable all of us to make better investments. And, we're constantly making choices from the state perspective about, where to invest. I think I mentioned last time we had about 300, or if we had a $400 million local roads funding available, $400 million bucks. Sounds like a lot. We got $5.2 billion worth of requests in 30 days, right? So one, don't tell me the application process is too hard, but two, there's a need there. And I'm sure all of the municipalities here have the same, and counties and everybody have the same kinds of experiences. So it's sort of like, how do we line up all of this request for need? How do we look at the weighted criteria for growth advancement that is nuanced enough to reflect the experiences happening on the ground? So that was my thought.
Yeah, I just want to also add the observation that I was a little kid in 1960 when the tollway was first being built. And I can remember going into the coffee shop and all the old boys sitting around saying, yeah, they're wasting a lot of money on the road they want to charge you to ride on. Who's ever going to drive it? Who's ever going to use it? Whatever have you. They're all dead and gone now, but I would like to go have them come back, and I'd like to take them down and show them. Thank goodness we did that in the 1960s, that they built the tollway, because if we didn't have that in Kane County today, we'd be in a huge backup every day of the week. There would be all these people wanting to go other places, and the tollway seems to be the vein of life that allows us to go wherever we want to go into the region and really get there. And it was a marvelous moment. And I know there was some governors that took a lot of flack about doing it. And I applaud the state now and continuing to try to improve it and do the stuff that needs to be done, because I don't think we're over there yet. And, we got some kind of, I'll call it silliness in the area. We keep talking here about Kendall County. Well, Kendall County politically has got some strange ideas, and one of them is they do not want to be part of the RTA. And they run for office out there with political signs that say, I will fight to keep the RTA tax out of Kendall County. And then the next thing I know, they're at meetings that I'm running in Kane County, and they want to get the Metro train through Aurora out to Oswego and Yorkville. Well, I think it's a great idea, but you better be prepared to join the RTA and pay for that, because that's not going to be cheap to get that out there. But so there's some political education I think needs to be done with some of our public officials, that if we're really going to do the stuff we need to do here, that we probably need to kind of start talking about it in a different conversation, because we got the ability, we got the system, and we got the need for it. And I really appreciate the good efforts that, the Tollway and IDOT and others are making to put this together, because without it, boy, would we be in a mess in this area.
Thank you for that, Mayor. Speaking of counties, I know that, I think Tara, you had something you wanted to add?
Oh, yes. Just wanted to share an observation. Thank you, Julie and Ryan, for the presentation. I think what's most compelling about your presentation is you're making the case that transportation is worth investing in. And, speaking of the North Star that Elizabeth mentioned, is that's what you're putting at the forefront. And I think it will help all of us as implementers as we go to advance our capital programs, because you're providing that validation that we can use to support those capital investments. So just wanted to say thank you.
That's great. Next, Director Rouse.
Yes, thank you. I also want to just echo a point that Tara just left off with, and that this report and your comments, again, as the Illinois Tollway is looking at our next long-term capital program. I was sitting here taking notes that, this really, what's in this report backs up our why and the investments that we're making as we are planning for the what's next. And to Mayor Shelkey, I mean, you basically gave the testimony as to, really, I'm going to coin the vein that the tollway is the vein of life. I'm going to lead with that. Over the next few weeks, as we are again, seeking the approval of that next long-term plan, and you really laid out really the impacts of our economic investment, and as you have stated around what has happened around Route 47 and Randall Road. I mean, that's exactly what we are doing, and we are actually leading with taking a look back to see, even through our Move Illinois program capital investments, just what that economic impact has been to communities and telling that story. But you did a fantastic job this morning telling it for us, and I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just one other point, and great reports, and I love the vision. And we just, I guess from my perspective, also can't forget the fact that Metro and CTA, pace a little bit, are sitting over $26 billion on a state of good repair backlog. And we've got to make sure we don't let the system fall apart. Otherwise, all this great investment only becomes this great investment. That's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, can I touch base real quick here with everybody? Mayor Schilke, especially.
Oh, okay. Yes, go ahead. And then Tom Rickard after.
Yeah, I don't know if you were there, Mayor Schilke, but I sat in on a transportation hearing with the state senators, and just want to let you know that we aren't totally against the RTA, but at the same time, we'd have to go out and get a referendum for our residents to approve joining the RTA. And with the given fact that we don't necessarily have the resources at this time as far as the transportation is concerned, I don't know if our residents, and if you take a look at the heat map of the state of Illinois in general, you'll see that Kendall County is the fastest growing county in the state. And, I think transportation is always, a hot button issue. We received $100 million in funding actually to start with the study. And then also Congresswoman Underwood has also earmarked, I believe, $4 to $5 million for Kendall County to do a study as well too. So I don't think it's that we're completely against the RTA, but also at the same time, there'd be a significant ask from our residents, our constituents, to go out, pass a referendum with, no services provided, up front. So that's just a tough ask. I don't think it's about the education of the elected officials, as you had noticed, had mentioned, but I think more so is, what do our residents want? Do they want to pay more taxes to get, an extension for commuter rail out? And I think really at the bottom line is, as us elected officials, at the county level especially, we would like to still, I know personally, I would still like to take a look at, commuter rail out to Kendall County, but, we really have to answer to our constituents as well too.
Thank you for that. On to Tom Rickard.
Yeah, I just had a couple questions in regards to the next steps. They appeared on one of the slides to be the socioeconomic forecast as well as travel demand. How extensive do you think that will be? How long will it take to get some of that data? I'm asking in regards to Mayor Schilke had shared some of the population numbers. The information on one of the slides said that the population in the region has decreased. Yet in Kane County, Elgin for the last few years has been growing by 10,000 people a year. We believe in the last census that Aurora was easily undercounted by about 45,000 people. So we have serious concerns with the census data. We have serious concerns with the growth that's occurring. And when our constituents come to us and say, well, the population's decreasing. And it's hard for us to say, wait a minute, look at this data. They Google it and they have the answer. So, so this is very important to us to understand some of this socioeconomic data and just trying to figure out how to integrate it into local planning efforts, county planning efforts. And so that is the next steps, and it'd be kind of interesting how extensive are you going to get to the previous travel demand modeling where you're actually getting into each of the quadrants and really understanding the growth that has occurred. Again, this is a concern in Kane County, and how quickly will this occur?
If I could actually, I know Ryan, you're chomping at the bit. Let me start here because I think I wanted to just close well, if we were getting to the end of the discussion, I'm not trying to preempt us to be done. Here is that growth is a really important element of our regional transportation plan and of our long range vision and all of our planning initiatives. And I do think whether we can debate, I think, and I think there's some serious concerns as you raised with the last census, and those things are concerning. But I do think as we look overall across the region, we are seeing population shifts within the region. Mostly. And I think if we do want to continue to be a place that people come, live, work, do business, it's also about thinking about the jobs that are here and whether or not we have the housing stock for the people that need to work in those jobs that are at the right affordable rates, that we have the transportation system, whether it's transit, whether it's driving to get those people to those jobs. And so, yes, we will be back before this body with our socioeconomic forecast. We are sort of having a discussion with our, the Moody's Analytics people who develop the socioeconomic data in partnership with us. We do have sort of a modest growth trajectory. And as you saw in the beginning slide that Julie had, is that we're seeing an aging population across the region too. And so I think as Secretary Biaggi was mentioning, it is about what are those strategic growth drivers, jobs, right? Jobs are going to drive people to the region. Maybe at the end of the century, there will be some climate migration, right? But those things are sort of a little bit harder to predict. The best thing that we can do as a region is make sure that we are facilitating, an environment that invites businesses to come do business in the entirety of the region and not just sort of between cities in the region, that we're thinking about sort of how do we compete nationally and globally in some of those spaces. And so we're starting to think about that as it relates to the economy. But maybe, Ryan, if you had something more technical to share with Tom, but I do think those are really important considerations that we need to be thinking about and that we are actively researching right now.
You covered it all much better than I would have. Just noting, again, reinforcing that we will be coming back with that information in the future.
All right. Well, you have spurred certainly a discussion that we're all very interested in. So thank you so much for the report and for all the information. And I know we would all look forward to some of those talking points and as we individually make pitches for things that we care about in the system. So next up, we have a legislative update from John Carpenter, our IGA director at CMAP.
Good morning. I'm John Carpenter, Director of Intergovernmental Affairs here at CMAP. Good to be with you this morning. As Aaron noted, the General Assembly approved our request for $2 million for our non-transportation work. That was included in the FY26 budget, which has been sent to the governor, and we're hopeful they send it quickly. We appreciate the support, the contributions of our supporters and the co-sponsors and the legislators who made this possible. There were other significant legislative developments as well this past spring. Late on Saturday, May 31st, the General Assembly approved the budget. They passed a $55.2 billion budget during the final hours of the session, along with the companion budget implementation and revenue bills. The budget increases spending by about 4% compared to the previous fiscal year. Included in this package is a $100 million budget reserve for immediate disbursements and governmental efficiencies, BRIDGE, to address any unanticipated delays in funding or failures of revenue. The revenue package totaling about $800 million includes some new taxes on tobacco and vaping products, sports betting, and additional taxes on foreign and out-of-state corporations. Taken together, the final budget package takes into account an approximate $500 million shortfall in revenue projections since the governor put forth his budget proposal last February. Additionally, as it was last year, the budget diverts approximately $171 million of motor fuel sales tax revenues from the road fund to the general revenue fund. One of the largest outstanding items of the General Assembly, something we were watching very closely along with some of my colleagues here, is the future of transit reform and funding. Representative Delgado and Senator Villavelam both filed transit reform bills during the last week of the session. The bills would create the new Northern Illinois Transit Authority, they're referring to it as NITA, to oversee operations of CTA, Metra, and PACE. The Senate bill also included several revenue proposals to increase funding available for transit operations and capital. After a few amendments and during the final moments of the session, the Senate passed their bill by a vote of 32 to 22. It's important to remember that 30 votes are needed for passage. The House did not take up the Senate bill, nor did the House advance its bill to the floor. The governor and legislative leadership have indicated work is needed this summer to address the governance and funding issues raised throughout the committee hearings and legislative debate. The General Assembly isn't scheduled to convene until veto session in October, although the possibility remains for a special session earlier if necessary or if progress is made over the summer. The IGA team will focus our outreach this summer on the need for stable, reliable sources of funding for the regional transit system. CMAP will continue to engage with legislators on the recommendations included in the PART report to help inform future legislation. And with that, I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Yes, Kyle.
Just a comment building off of John's comments. So the reason I'm here is because Leanne is at our board meeting, which is happening right now, and our board is considering a budget call that will include needing to fill a 20% gap in our budget because the legislature failed to address the fiscal cliff. So that equates to service cuts of up to 40% for CTA, Metra, and PACE. So also part of that proposed budget call would be if the legislature does come forward with funding, what does that mean for our budgets? So the operators will be considering and working on that with the RTA over the next several months. I just hope everybody at this table and everybody across the region will join us in advocating for sustainable transit funding, and specifically the $1.5 billion in new operations funding annually that CMAP called for in the PART report. RTA started working on this fiscal cliff in our strategic planning process that started in 2021. That report was adopted in 23. Later in 23, CMAP approved the PART report, and here we are halfway through 2025, very close to the deadline, and we still have not seen legislative action. So I hope that motivates all of us to contribute and make sure that transit operations funding comes through in time. There's been some discussion, there's still time for the legislature to act. It's true that our projections show that the relief funds will not be fully spent down until the first quarter of next year. But we have to consider that, if the legislature is approving new revenue, especially if there are new revenue sources or novel ways, that money's going to take some time to reach the system. And in the meantime, that could mean, service cuts and layoff notices going out. So the sooner the legislature acts, and the sooner we have funding certainty, the better off the system and the region is going to be. That's it.
Kyle, to that point, I don't think people appreciate or realize or think about the ramp up time that the Department of Revenue will need to get those funds flowing. So that's something to be considered as well.
Other questions or discussion? All right. Thank you so much for that report. Okay, on to other business, item 7.0. Is there any other business before this committee? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 8.0, public comment. So we will take public comments from individuals who are in the audience first, followed by any remote participants. Are there any comments from the public? All right. Hearing none. Oh, wait. From the public. From the public. Online. Oh, we have online. We do. Okay, so we have, I think, Garland Armstrong online.
Yes, it's Garland Armstrong. How you doing, everybody?
We are good. How are you?
All right. I just would like to say something to Molly from CTA. Molly, tell Nora from Garland and Heather Armstrong out in Des Moines, Iowa, formerly of Elmwood Park and Des Plaines, to welcome aboard for CTA, and we pray that she becomes the new president of CTA. And if she ever feels like she want to contact me, you give her my cell phone number, and I'll tell her all about me and my wife, what we've done. So just want to give you the heads up on that. And also to want to make sure the update for Metra, especially like if the unthinkable does happening, and I know, and I think Jim is there. Jim, just want to make sure just in case, like if the battery starts creeping up with the fire coming, how many days are y'all training for, just in case if the unthinkable does happen, and how to communicate for those commuters, especially those who cannot speak English or people with disabilities, when you're coming to the station, and make sure that the fire crew and the police are well prepared. How many days are you training for that to make sure, so if the unthinkable does come in, so that we won't have any like dead bodies or something like that. Same thing too with PACE. And then also too, I know CTA is doing well on the training part, but just give me an update on what is what on everything. So on all three of them, just to make sure if the unthinkable does happening, so that I won't see it on my iPhone on ABC7 app, what happened in the Chicagoland area when I saw it from Iowa, that what caused a situation like that. So anybody from CTA Metro PACE have an update on it so far?
Hi, Garland. It's Lynette from Metra. We can give you an update of where we are with things as we progress.
Okay.
All right. And so CTA will do the same. Thank you. So
All
we'll
right. And what about
handle
PACE
that
too?
offline.
Same thing, Carla. We can provide you an update later on.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for raising
And
it.
RTA make sure if it does happen, the unthinkable, make sure you tell to the board director, see what they can do about it, including the chairman, how they can make sure to get involved in it. So if the unthinkable does happen, and God forbid that we won't have any dead bodies, and what y'all can do to help out in this situation. So RTA, make sure about it also too.
Yes, RTA will as well. All of the transit boards will be sure to follow up and make sure it's all covered. Thank you for raising it. And as always, thanks for getting online. Is there
Thanks.
anyone else from the public online who wishes to make a comment? Hearing none. All right. That ends our public comment period. Next item, 9.0, is our next meeting. So the next meeting is a joint meeting with CMAP board and is scheduled for Wednesday, October 8th, 2025. So put that on your calendars. Item 10.0 is adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved, Mayor Shelkey. Second? Second, Mary Nickel, CDOT. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Okay.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.